for the meeting of the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission for the City of Norwood. I will call the roll. And I have to admit, I did not change the agenda. Deb Garvey is here on behalf of Mr. Jarvis, who is in Normandy or on his way right now. So I will, if you would amend that to, and replace Mr. Jarvis's name with Miss Garvey. Okay, I will call the roll. Mayor Snyder.
Present.
Council President Miracle is not with us. He apologized, he is sick. Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Shepard.
Here.
Mr. Gomez.
Here.
Ms. Garvey.
Here.
And I am here in one form or another. Approval of the April 11th, 2023 meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Mr. Schwartz moves. Do I have a second? Mr. Shepard seconds. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If there are no amendments, I will call the roll for approval. I would ask Ms. Garvey to abstain since she is not here. And I will also ask Mayor Schneider. Council President Miracle is not here. Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
Approved. Mr. Shepard.
Approved.
Mr. Gomez.
Yes.
And Ms. Hanrahan, yes. Okay, Anna Mary. Financials.
In front of you is our normal packet of information. So we'll start with attachment A. In front of you is all information from July. I did get August information last week, but that is too fast of a turnover for comparisons and stuff, so we're doing July. The very first attachment would be the statement of cash position at the end of July. The first three funds are what's in the recovery plan, the general fund, street and state highways. Those are all positive. We do have one fund showing negative. It is a timing issue. I can tell you that it's already a positive in August. It was a reimbursement that did not occur until the following month. So that went back to positive. There are no other funds that are negative. The Fund 289 is also in the recovery plan because that is the incentive income tax monies, and those have gone away now, but there's still monies left in there. And you can go through on the last sheet, that's where the enterprise funds are with water and so forth, and it has a positive balance. It has had negative in the past, but it is positive for now. Any questions on this summary of cash position for July? Okay, the next one is the recovery plan revenues versus actual. Again, this is through July. We're looking at them being at 58% collected just based on the month or higher being better, but 58% still being good. In the general fund, I'm going to talk about a couple of them. Property taxes, they received their first half. You would expect it to be over 50% with that collection, and it was. They'll have their second half in either August or September, and then that would be fully collected at that time. Income tax is at 65% collected. You just went through April and the first part of the year where you have your highest collections. So those are on target for now. If you look at how it comes in waves here, April being the biggest month. Hotel tax, they've already received 3 quarters, they get 4, so there's 1 quarter left. If you look at it that way, they're like 2% over of target really for that. So that's good. That was increased last year, so that means that the estimate for now has been good for that area.
Is that a different fiscal period? You said it was quarter that?
So, okay, so they pay quarterly. So the 4th quarter of last year would have been paid into the 1st quarter of their year. So you have to wait until, so December would have paid, for the last 3 months, would have been paid in January. So
Okay.
then January, February, March would be paid in April, and so forth.
Okay, so we got one more coming?
One more coming.
Okay, and then January, the next one comes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, okay. Fees, licenses, and permits, it is a little lower. This is where the building permits are. Last year, they had a really good year of building permits. This is one that's really hard to estimate at times. It all fluctuates, so you try to be conservative in your approach. So you'll see in past years, it goes up and down. But for now, it's a little lower than was projected for the year. As you can see, investment income is up. They've already exceeded expectations in that area. They just really put money in Star Ohio, and that's really it. And then other, it's very small, but it's already over as well. They got some monies from the movie company that was in here. I think that was around $20K that went into there. And then there was a settlement money that they received that was really from a lawsuit back in California that a lot of the entities got within Ohio, and I think that was around $17K. We've seen that across the state. They did, I think you had to put something in to apply for it, but it's just not coming out this year. The general fund overall is at 64% collected at the end of July, which is good. It makes it in good standing. Any questions over the general fund? The last 2 funds are the street and state highway. The street fund is right close to our target of 58%, and then state highway is a little over on our target. And those get MVL monies, gas tax, and then they also are required to get interest revenue because of the gas tax monies that's required through the higher revised code. So when they get the interest revenue in, they have to allocate that to those 3 funds. That's the only 3 funds that you'll see the interest revenue in. And that's all based upon fund balances. The general fund gets the most because it's supposed to, it gets everybody else's share. Any questions over revenues? Yeah. Our next one is expenses. Again, we're a target of 58%, but we wanted to actually be lower than that or right at 58%. The first several pages are the general fund by department. I'm going to go over a few of these. I'm mainly going to go over the over target or exceeds ones. If you have questions about other ones, I'll try to answer those. So please go to page 2. The auditor's office is at 60.54%. They had an annual software payment that was due in the first part, which was $45,000. $45,000, yes. So it's a one-time payment that'll hit your target areas when we break this down monthly.
What's that for? Like, is that for maintenance, or is that
No,
for training, or is that?
No, that's like having the software and access and maintenance and all that.
Yeah, that's your subscription?
Yes.
Okay. Do we expense it all at once, or do we?
It's paid in time.
I know, but do we straight line that over, like it's prepaid assets and we work it off throughout the year?
They work on cash basis, not GAAP. So
Right.
that's okay. We would deal with that on the GAAP basis for just the year-end financial report, but they don't do, most of
So
the
the year-end is
entities.
GAAP, but the monthlies are not?
Yes.
Okay.
Almost every government entity, and I say almost every, there's a few outliers there that do sort of GAAP, but most do cash basis.
Yeah.
It's much cleaner and easier. Then they GAAP up,
Got it.
even the county.
Yeah, let's get gapped up.
Okay. If you move down, you'll see the transportation close to the bottom of that page, and it's almost nearly completely spent. This is where fuel and everything is paid from. I did ask for an analysis. I did receive an analysis. There were two huge payments in June and July. We're still diving into the whys of that. This is a potential area that we have to move some appropriations. Yes, Mr.
Well, this is carryover, there was a then and now done in January, February to pay for.
Yes.
So that
Part
took
of
a
it.
chunk of it out of here. Carryover meaning there was gas that was not paid for in last year's budget that was paid for in this budget that,
Okay.
which is gonna skew the numbers.
It will. And there was also some large payments in June, July, so, and we've seen increases in rates. The building department, I just wanted to mention it, it's not in any issues, it was lower than projections. They still have not filled a building commissioner's spot, so that'd be why. The next page, 3 of 6, which should be police administration at the top. For several of these I'm going to talk about right now, they did make their payment of the leave buyback, which is a part of the union contracts that they have throughout the city. So that's a one-time deal, usually a decent-sized payments to the different departments. With that being said, we're slightly over in the police administration at 58.98%, and that is really, the payroll is what is high, and it is really due to that buyback, which will lessen as we go through the, not like you paid it, but it'll lessen the percentage basis.
Change of chiefs. So new police chief retired.
It all goes back to the union contracts and leave balances that the employees wanted to get paid out, so that would have been there with the old chief as well. Police crime and control, again, the same thing. It is at 60.37% instead of 58. Payroll is high. There is the leave buybacks that were paid. Also, there was a debt service one-time payment as well. So the yearly amount was all paid. So that would definitely skew the percentages, looking at it by month. Fire administration, they slightly exceed as well. Their payroll is at 61.1%. It's really the leave buybacks. Now that was a little higher than estimate, so we'll be watching it as we go forward on where we're going to be standing at the end of the year. The fire department also exceeds slightly, like really slightly, 0.48 versus 0.33. Payroll again, leave buybacks, and then contractual services has also been spent up to 61%, and that's timing of year. EMS exceeds right now, and that's a little higher, but they made a debt payment in full out of there. So that explains why those percentages are high for them.
What type of debt payment would that be? I guess for that and.
Okay, so you're really gonna test my memory now. So some of this was, there's radio leases that are split between a couple of departments. And then you have, I thought we had an ambulance lease as well, which would be paid out of here. So that would be the debt out of the EMS. So that was debt for an ambulance vehicle. So that's a decent sized payment. Page 4. Superintendent of Public Works, this is also exceeds. We do have buybacks here. I'm also watching the split payroll there. There's a weird split between this and water based upon the 2 employees that are paid out of there. Community Center Department, this is slightly exceeds. They had in the plan and the capital plan to do a project to the building. That has been done, completed, and paid. So that really is why that's slightly over. So
It will smooth out.
yes, it will smooth out.
I'm sorry, can we go back just to the Public Works, Superintendent of Public Works Department? Was there Public Works seasonal employee put in that pushed that over some too? I thought there was somebody that was their time, their pay was allocated to Superintendent of Public Works Department and should not have been. You didn't see that?
I can double check into that. I did not see that because they're supposed to be in playground and in the streets.
Parks and
is where they're
playgrounds?
supposed to be paid
Yeah.
from. From the
I thought that.
right.
Okay.
Okay. That was all page 4, page 5. Dispatch, again, this has been contracted out, so we don't have personnel in here. I am still waiting to hear back on something in this. They're making their normal payments of $89.22 a month, and then they had a one-time payment of around $28,000. I'm still waiting to hear all what that was, and I'll be talking to Miller about that. So we'll be watching that to make sure that there's enough appropriations within this one. And then the retirees benefit program, that was completely paid out, so you will not see any more expenditures out of that, so that's why it's
Which one's that for?
This one.
the last one I talked about, the retirees benefits program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which piece is that? Is there only one piece now, or I know we had multiple programs on a few years ago? And,
Oh yeah, that was all taken care of before,
yeah.
I can't remember her name, but
Yeah.
anyways, that was all in an agreement, there's no more healthcare
So
taken
what is-
care of and all that.
What is this, what does this money represent? What did we pay into, who?
Well, the city,
Like profit, like it's like,
Is this in
it's a
Pension or
set
profit
amount, no, pension's totally different. This is like, no, that would be done through OPURS or Ohio Police and Fire, OPNF, that's that piece. So originally, there was this healthcare piece that if you retired after this time, and there was timelines on that, and then they went back to the drawing board, and then the retirees that were benefiting from that, plus the city and the council and legal, all got their heads together, and then they came up and they agreed on one set amount every year. That's it. There's no more on the hook for other stuff for the city. So it got them out of the retirees' health
The
benefit
old-
plan
yeah, the old-
and things like that. So now it's just this, and there's only a set amount of people that are qualified for the requirements to get this. I don't think any new ones can come on now
Correct.
after we had the last couple retire. So this will stay either the same or continue to decrease as time
and this
goes
is for all, these are all retired people, not any current employees?
No, no current,
Okay.
And just a particular group,
very particular group.
because there's
This was
been
kind
some
of
that
this-
have retired afterwards that don't fit the qualifications.
Yeah. Was this a byproduct of the closing down of those multiple older programs, and this was kind of the new piece that they agreed on? Is that what you're,
Yes, it was
I don't know,
negotiated that way.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
negotiated that.
so now we have one and it's this?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's
Got
been
it.
that way 3, 4.
Yeah, I just
years.
needed a refresher. I just saw that was 100, so I figured I'd ask the question because it's 100%, so I was just, I needed just a refresher.
Usually that occurs in the first couple of months of the year that they make that payment
Okay.
instead of the end of the year. Any questions on the general fund? As you can see in total, it's at 56.78%, which is below target spend with all the departments.
I don't know if this question would be best addressed to the mayor or not, but on those funds that are below, well, I guess it differs, but are there any, let's put it this way, are there any departments or any expenditure areas of expense that are lower because there's hiring that still needs to be done?
Well, yes, as Anna Mary pointed out with the building department, we'd love to have a fully qualified building commissioner working for the city, but they're very hard to find. So we said, okay, we'll go to a building department manager. And we've got some different staffing issues that have went on there. We haven't hired for that position. So
Okay.
that is one. And then
Auxiliary?
auxiliaries, we've hired auxiliaries, but we've still got a couple of open positions for auxiliaries.
Okay.
Anything else that you can think of? No, is there any other position?
Okay. So the building, I get that because my understanding of things I've read is that they're difficult because of qualifications that are needed to find them. But in general, those that are under kind of expect that to continue. Bearing any,
Unless our current, acting building commissioner makes a change and has retired and is doing this almost as a favor to the city of Norwood. He's compensated, don't get me wrong. It's
Yeah.
not like he's volunteering his
Right.
time, but unless something happens with him, I don't foresee anything happening in the near future to change that, the way that office is ran.
Okay.
One area that I do think we'll be looking at closely is a budget director. And I think we put that person in a staffing plan, but it hasn't been funded. But the three of us, meaning the auditor and the treasurer and the mayor, have been talking about that and putting a person in place to really help our department heads tune in to the budget and to help all of us do better on a regular basis with budgeting.
A full-time position.
Yeah, we'd like to do, like you said, we'd like to, as Anna Marie, Mary looks at this, we're looking at 12 months, and is the budget really indexed out properly? And shouldn't we be able to see some of those major expenses that come along at the time that they come and be able to plan more for them, instead of just putting them in and saying, sometime this year, we know we're gonna have to pay $45,000. Well, sometime this year, we should have that all,
Closed.
yeah, it should be right there, and we should know exactly
At
what
least
it's
for the
about.
big ones that you can see, all right, this is gonna hit in February, and then it kind of explains the fluctuations that you see on the back end.
Yeah,
Say,
and then
okay, well, the timing of that,
We
yeah.
look at it in March and go, wait a minute, we were supposed to make a payment in February, we had it all, but what happened here? So we need we need to be better at that. And that's where we're thinking that having a budget person working with us on a regular basis and our department heads change. And, when you have staffing changes and you get one person that's really great with understanding the city's finances, and then the next person comes along and they're like, that's not my strength, my strength is, so that's, I'm sorry, that's not
Okay.
like.
No, that's interesting. That's good.
Any other questions on the general fund piece? Because we have the last page to get to. Okay. On the last page is the street and state highway, which is being shown in total. They are below target right now. We are in the construction month, so we probably have not seen all that is going to occur until later in the year with payments on when services are provided. Any questions on those? So that would be the financial piece.
How often do we do a capital budget?
Well, they're required to do it with their financial recovery plan, at least with the general fund and the two, the street and state highway funds. I have not seen that they use that in the other funds, but there is a couple other street funds that could be included in that as well. You have the permissive, and there's one other fund, and then you have several other different funds that they have restricted monies for. So they're doing that yearly right now, the capital.
Is that something that we can get with maybe every time we meet or once or twice a year, so just see it? I find that helpful to see what's been earmarked kind of monies, 2-3 years out, because, I get questions from neighbors and things like, about streets and about where we're spending money and things like that, and it would be helpful to be better educated.
The plan is in the financial recovery plan, so the one that you just signed.
I mean, like the one pager that I think you did in the past or Ken did, where it slots like funds and major monies going out or allocated, like streets, $1.2 million, and these streets are earmarked.
Yeah, it's in the capital plan that they have.
Okay.
I don't know of any other plan.
No, it's within the financial recovery plan.
Okay, is that an ongoing document, or is that like once a year, or?
Every year, and yeah, it's a thriving document, because although we can allocate the funds for it, there are certain projects that you can get accomplished this year.
Sure,
and certain
yeah, so
projects you
it's a
So
liquid
it's-
document.
can't. Yeah, it's dynamic.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wondered if that's something maybe we could see more often than once a year? Or maybe just have it part of our general package?
I mean, we're working on, actually have sitting on my desk, the capital projects funds and what we're trying to do in each area. I mean, whether that's City Hall or Community Center, and also looking at streets and looking at all of it. So that's something, anytime you want to send me an email and say, hey,
Yeah, I don't know if it would help other members of this committee, or Tom, I don't know if that's valuable to you, but I find it valuable as a citizen and as a representative on this committee.
So
to see the large chunks and where they're going and talking about them.
are you looking at the plan or also an update of the plan versus what they've done?
I thought it was an add-on capital budget for guidance that was a standalone document outside of that package. I mean, I know
Specific to streets or specific to
it
capital?
had probably 5 different funds on it, and it showed monies over the next 5 years being spent kind of by these funds. Like for streets, it would be like, all right, $1 million in 2023, and we're gonna hit Cameron, and we're gonna hit this, and whatever else we need to do. Next year, I got another $1.5 million or whatever earmarked, I'm not sure for what yet. And then things like that in parks, like we're building a, $200,000 structure at this park. I know I saw that
Yes and no.
document.
Yes and no, meaning, we've said we're gonna leverage every penny that we can to try to get more streets completed. So we're constantly putting applications in for grants, for funds to leverage the dollars that we have. So, there is a fluid, very fluid document that is out there that we work with our engineering to try to say, did we get, so Lincoln Avenue is a street, like the county came back and said, we can give you this much money to do Lincoln Avenue. We said, well, that's not acceptable. We're not going to agree to that at that time. So it goes into the process now. And it's going to be another 6 months before we can reapply and potentially, and we did, and we got more. But so it is constantly being updated.
Yeah, which is why I'm interested in seeing it more than once a year, so that we can also see the reactions and the flow of what's happening throughout the year to better understand just, okay, that didn't work, all right, well, that money's gonna get moved to next year, or that's just gonna go somewhere else, or that's.
City Council has a Streets and Infrastructure Committee that meets on a regular basis.
Okay.
And they discuss issues and discuss what's going
Yeah,
on.
and it wasn't the streets, it was kind of all the
Yeah.
capital, like we need a new fire truck, so we're gonna need $500,000 in '24 to buy a new truck, or 2 new cruisers, or. Am I crazy, or is that document?
That's all we got.
Yeah, I'm looking at a copy of the financial recovery plan that we approved in April,
Yeah.
and it's attachment A.
You mind if I come over and just take a peek?
Yeah, no, not at all. But
I'm
I'm
not-
not, I think in certain areas, you're probably looking for more detail.
Yeah, no, actually, no. I was looking, this is kind of what I was thinking about, but I thought it was actually a landscape schedule.
Oh.
And, no,
May
this
have
is good,
seen a
times it out.
copy at one-
but, yeah, no, but this was the general idea.
Okay.
Okay, we need, yeah, exactly. Okay. It's been
But-
so long since I've seen the plan.
And
I
that's
didn't know
just
it was in there.
sort of like a planning document, as the mayor said, availability.
Nothing extra in stone.
And then maybe you get a grant for some other street that you had planned on doing or whatever,
There,
so maybe-
when you say nothing etched in stone, there are certain things that are etched in stone that we know we have to have.
Yeah.
But there are other things that you look at and go, wait a minute, if we put this off 6 months, we can get.
Yeah, I mean, you're constantly making decisions and thinking about things, and then, okay, that won't timing work out, so you're shifting things around, so it'd be nice to just.
Yeah, we know fire trucks, we know police, we know equipment.
Okay.
Those things are,
Well, I'll just email you if,
Yeah, we
if you
can-
want to send it to the group, send it to the group. It's something I find interesting from a cash flow basis.
but we got one more signature on here. I'll get a fresh copy of this, once she signs it, and then we'll,
Yeah.
Has that been changed
that-
since, okay, so it's a once a year,
that's, yeah.
Okay.
But that has all the report, everything that you
Yeah.
can see is in there.
exactly, that's
I
what I was
can
envisioning.
break it down into, I'll break it down. I won't send it, what I've done before, scan this all as one big document. What I can do is break it down into, say, 4 different files. So it has that capital as one file. You click on it, it opens it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, just.
Instead
just
of, it'll
run a
make it,
PDF.
it'll make it a little more
Yeah.
user
Now
friendly.
that's the landscape for the next 5 years based on when they did the plan. But I think
I
what
probably
you
think-
may be looking for is, well, how'd we do? Like of what we planned in
A little,
2023?
yeah, forward and
how
backwards,
much
look
is?
back, not
Yeah,
to say,
that's
well,
how
you
you
failed
do
at
it.
this, but.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I see
just-
what you're saying.
Yeah, and when I said landscape, it was actually a landscape printed document that I remember. It might be the one from 2 or 3 years ago.
It could be, I don't know.
Because it-
I'd have to
yeah.
look.
And I frankly forgot that was in there because, 6 months ago.
Right.
so.
Gotcha.
All right, I digress.
Okay. Any other questions on the financials? Okay, let's go on to old business, new business. Let's go with the old business first, and then we'll go to the new business. Again, I just want to say that when I put these on the agenda, I put them as I know, but I always conceptualize this old business, new business as whatever comes up. So if we want to discuss something jogs our memory from a couple meetings ago, that's old business, please bring it up. But just so that we don't forget to address these areas. So again, let's go with what I've got down, and then we can see if there's anything else that we want to address. Okay, so Anna Mary, do you want to talk to us about the bank reconciliation?
Yes, so a couple updates there. So the city is unable to reconcile on the system, and that is really due to paperwork. How the upload is done and put into the system, it does not break it out the way the system needs it for payroll versus non-payroll and what really fits those banks. We have actually sat down with the treasurer's office, and they're doing a manual approach. This is the way that we approach it when we come in monthly to do it. They have talked to their software, so I know that it's not possible at this time. So we worked with them, we taught them how we do things. It's a little slower in manner, but I will say they have done up through July. There's some variances. We were supposed to come in July and look at that. August. July did not work due to some vacation issues on both sides. August did not turn out to work either because we lost a staff person on my side, so that kind of shifted some things on our workload. I am scheduled to come in here in 2 weeks. I have seen it. I have not been able to come and prove it out and talk to them about what some of the issues are they're still having. It is a much better product than I have seen in a while. That now we went away from the software in and of itself. So we're constantly working with them, but it does look better. I just can't tell you for sure if all the bugs worked out. We need to go through it. So me and the one staff person who's been the constant one that goes through our stuff and pulls it together for us is coming with me, and we're going to look at those when we come down. So, but they are through July. I wouldn't expect August to be done quite yet. I didn't check this week if they had gotten that one done.
When you say through July, so they're reconciled in the way that they do it.
Yes.
Forget the system, because
Yes.
we know they can't, and for system reasons, and payroll. So when saying that they're reconciled to July by hand, that means to the bank statement, so there's not any missing items that they can't account for.
Yeah, there is. There's a small amount. It's not as
Okay.
big as it was.
Okay.
And that's the other piece that we need to come in and see if we can help identify.
Okay. If you get to a point, at what point do you get to where you say, we can't find this? Do you write it off?
Yes. So normally we say we want to see the same amount off for 6 months, because then you're truly
Okay.
reconciling each month.
And you
Does
just
that make
can't
sense?
account for
Yes.
X dollars.
So when that occurs, and if we can get to the same amount and we're up to date, then we would have the city council approve a resolution, or an ordinance, I think it's a resolution, to approve a one-time adjustment, and it would have to hit the general fund, whether it's positive or negative, because it's an unknown variance, so the only fund that can handle that is the general fund. We've done that in other entities. We stress it's a one-time deal, because we don't want that to be something that occurs regularly, and I have to say that more for our smaller entities that have way more upheaval and who's in those offices, even though you guys have had lots of changes. So that is the end game, and we've talked about that. And then all the things that have been identified in the past that we can say this is the issue or this is the issue, whether it's on the books or in the bank, that's been dealt with and posted as that's been found. And then we double check that. Now that's the auditor side that does that. So then we double check that those postings have occurred into the correct funds. So If it's prior stuff, I think we still have to run it through receipt or an expense, and then that has to be written down for the end of the financial system, because balances change, and then you don't want to show incorrect activity that was really from the prior year. That's the whole big thing. But anyways, we're kind of stuck with how the system works. Like, if you're talking our system, UAN, for the state auditor's office, which much smaller entities use, we can do fund balance adjustments. SSI and some of our other softwares do not do that. You have to actually hit the revenue expense. But yeah, so that's the end game of, if we get to a point where we can't identify the certain amount and it stayed consistent, then we're going to have council approve a resolution saying we're going to do a one-time adjustment, positive or negative, like, just depends.
Okay.
We just haven't gotten there yet.
Do we know, you mentioned Paycor, you mentioned the system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you envision a time where
Yeah.
the system will be adjusted to be able to?
I think that would be hard for them if they contract with any outside payroll company, to be honest, just
Okay.
because, one, I'm very thankful that there is an upload and we're not entering. I'll say that.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So what upload has done, though, doesn't quite meet up to the system in the background of the bank reconciliation, which sounds really weird. The information getting put in by funds and stuff and departments is all right. But there's a back end to that software that certain things have to hit certain places for the payroll side versus what we call non-payroll side. And then you have several different bank accounts we're talking about. So that's just not meeting up. I don't know. That would be a conversation that you'd have to probably have with Paycor, SSI, and the city, and then there would probably be some give and take on both sides, and you're talking to two different companies, and I have no idea.
So there's a feasibility part that's questionable, as well as the financial hit that it,
Yes.
okay.
I'm just saying, I'm not happy we can't do it on the system, but we went away from it. We decided that's not going to work. The treasurer's office has picked up what we do, which is a very lengthy process, but they're getting it down. They're doing that on a monthly basis, and that's what I want to see. So we're in better streets in that regard,
Okay, that's
if
good.
that makes sense.
How do we book the payroll entry?
Well, there's an upload that's done.
I mean, we upload our data, and then do we download their journal entry and then book that, or
You're
what is?
getting into specifics, so that would be a question for city auditor's office. So
Okay,
I know enough to be dangerous. I don't know exactly what.
because I mean, I use Paycor and I use the same processes and things, and book journal entries based on each payroll, you know, and all that. We don't have the level of accounts and allocation, obviously, but I was just curious as to where the actual, what hits the GL and where's that coming from? What's driving that? Is that just like, we download that into the system and it populates, or?
You have to talk to the auditor's office.
Yeah, because that may be the,
May or may not be right.
you know, that, I mean, how that's done may be part of the issue. Did it ever work out with the new system in the payroll, like aligning? Or is this
Before
a
they
new?
went to Paycor, they were never reconciled before they moved. So the answer would be no, because we were still working through past issues. And they've been with Paycor 2 years. So,
Okay, so it's never been exactly reconciled in the last 2 years?
on the system, no.
Yes.
On the system, no. We've been working with them, and we've done some years in the past. Through 2022, we have a reconciliation for every month.
Yeah,
And then there
before
were
Paycor.
adjustments. No, Paycor was in play last year.
Oh, okay, I thought you said 2 years, sorry.
They've been,
Yeah, 22, 23.
well, 2.5 years. So, we've reconciled them manually with there were some adjusting factors, and they've been worked out, and there's still an unknown that we've carried for years too. So, we just need to get them more current, which they have been working on. I need to look at what they've done since the last time we've met with them.
Is that part of the management letter, the things that need to be fixed?
Well, that's also in the report on accounting methods, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
that's what I meant. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes. I don't know if they got a comment about any of that in their recent audit. I don't Has that been released for 22? I'm thinking no, because they got their report done late for filing, so.
Yeah, yeah, it's actually doing the audit and then the publishing, because
Yeah, and they got an extension
Review.
because we helped them with the city report and that had to get an extension. So I know that that's a little behind the audit part.
I got a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
When we write off something out of the the reconciling items here that we're not sure goes 6 months, then is there a dollar limit to the amount that?
Oh, they only get to do this one time. That's not every 6 months they look at that. Like, I'm saying normally, if we see the same unknown variance for 6 months,
Right,
then we will have a conversation and say, okay, it will take way more resources to go find this because it's way old.
Yeah.
So then we'll allow them to do a one-time adjustment only. And then from there on, they should be identifying what the reconciling items are and fixing those on a timely basis.
so how many one-time adjustments have we done in the last 5 years?
None.
No, this is the first one?
We haven't done any yet.
Okay.
We have
'Cause
not
because
approved it yet.
this reconciling item number, I know this has been here since I've been here,
Yes.
right.
and it's getting bigger, our cash is getting bigger, and it's 0.5% of overall, but
But it's changing now.
well, I'm sure, because it was, 15,000 at one point.
Right, so
So
what
new
she's
things had to
saying is
come
that
in.
at a point where it doesn't change, it's X dollars, and
Yeah,
it won't change for 6 months. Chances are everything else has gone through, we've reconciled, but we can't find the stubborn pot of items.
yeah,
So because it's consistent, the dollar amount has not changed. And this is a point where they say, look, I mean, it's been this way for 6 months, haven't been able to find it, you're not gonna find it, let's do a one-time adjustment. But that amount has to stay the same, and it hasn't, it's varied.
but there's multiple items with this, and this 120,000, this is just one item. There's probably,
Correct, but
10
the
or
dollar,
more, so-
the dollar amount is what is what they're looking at, the dollar amount of what is,
so this dollar amount.
For lack of a better
this
word,
dollar-
And that's an old one
Plug.
that you're looking at, because I didn't provide any reconciliations this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too. I mean, I don't.
'Cause I didn't have
And
any of
somewhere in the
that.
new notes, but it says September, but, yeah, so I don't even know what the new number is. So if the numbers say it's 120,000 of unreconciled items, that number needs to stay 120 per 6 months.
Yes,
Okay,
it's normally what we do. Yes.
not the components within there.
No,
No.
well, if we
'Cause
knew
we
the
don't know what the
components, we would have
components are.
already pulled that apart and stated that this is a revenue issue, this is an expense issue, non-posted or posted incorrectly, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it's
So
a hodgepodge
that
of
is,
stuff.
Right.
it's a hodgepodge.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, it's not just one item, there's
Right.
numerous items in
Right.
here, and one may say be the same for 6 months, another one may reverse
But
itself
the-
in 3 months, and so.
but that would change the dollar amount.
Yeah.
So in your example, that's not
So-
going, that doesn't mean the conditions that the auditor would have.
Okay, we would never write off a component of this
No,
number.
because we
It's
wouldn't know what
either
the
all or nothing.
component is.
Well, you can identify and say that $6,000 relates to something that happened 9 months ago, and I'm pretty sure I can link it to.
But then you
it's-
could reconcile it.
Right, if you were gonna go back 9 months ago.
Well, they've been trying to reconcile since they've been in here,
Yeah,
so I don't know either.
it's fine. One other thing, what is the Cathedral Avenue US Bank account? Is that still, again, I guess I'm got bad information.
Yeah, that's a very old one.
I don't even know.
They've
I
closed
got-
several bank accounts. I do not remember on what I just looked at if that's one that is still open. And I would have to have the treasurer's office up here to tell you for sure.
That's fine if it's.
Because that might be one of the fire loss insurance monies where they have to hold the insurance monies until the damaged property is taken care of. Once the damaged property is taken care of, then the city releases the money. If it's never taken care of, then the city can use that money to then do issues that take care of the damaged property. But I do not know if that's that bank account or not. So that would be a question for the treasurer's office.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that it? Anna Mary, do you want to go on to the report on accounting methods? The
Sure.
Comments on that report.
Okay, so in front of you is the last page that I had in front, packet I had. This goes through every comment. It goes with the report sections, budgetary, accounting, ledgers. What the comment actually reads, like there's a whole big report that we talk about what we did and then the comments and where things stand right now. The last three columns are really the more important ones. It talks about being cleared but monitoring, in process and not started. There were a couple that were moved to cleared but monitoring after testing that we did this summer. Had a crew come in and we looked at several different areas. We did not get to the treasurer's office for the bank reconciliation, but we got with them for some other things. One of the areas that we've moved was the third comment, which is the deficits. I know we showed one, but I knew that one was coming off. We're not really seeing deficit fund balances, but we continue to monitor that. Revenue, which is number 6. The safeguarding of monies, we've actually tested that several different times. Back in the day, there were some monies that were left out that were unlocked, or drawers or safes. All that is stored in a locked safe down in the treasurer's office. We've numerous times went and checked that, so I've moved that over. We're just going to continue to look at that. Page 2, on revenues, comment number 10, earnings tax department. At one time, they were trying to do auditing and pull the monies and do it all at one time, and they got behind. You're really supposed to deposit monies within 24 hours unless you have a policy that states that you can do it within 3 days, and that's as far as you can go under the higher rise code. They do not have a policy for a 3-day thing. So we're seeing them pull those monies out within 24 hours, getting them deposited, making notations on things, and then going back and auditing that income tax return. So that's been checked several times, and we've moved that over. Purchasing down there, number 14, the 41Ds, the then and nows. We did hear about one, but when we first came in here, when they were in fiscal emergency, the amount of then and nows that we saw was endless. You will see that when they have one that's over $3,000 as a required approval by council, that can't just be approved by the city auditor. So we do, when they're over 3,000, we're seeing those go through council like they're supposed to. So they're following the code in that regard. Just the amount of then and nows has really been reduced in the last several years.
What's a then and now purchase order?
Okay, so then and now means that instead of getting a purchase order and putting appropriations or the expense budget to the side and saying, hey, we've already accounted for this expense coming up, therefore you have less open expense budget monies to spend, it reduces it. Then you obligate the funds. Then you get the services and the product, and then you pay the bill. What happens when you talk about it then and now, the purchase order was not done up front to make sure that the funds were available for the expense budget. They obligated the funds first, probably have an invoice and already have the services or the product in hand, so then you're doing it backwards. So then if it's less than 3,000, the city auditor says, yes, we did have the funds at the time that this was done, so yeah, we're going to accept it. But if it's over 3, he has to approve it, and then city council has to approve it as a resolution in the minutes.
All right, thank
No problem. Okay. Then on page 4, under payroll's really changed since last time we were here. When we tested it, it used to all be done in-house. It's been with Paycor. We've been looking at the rates and how that's approved. That's actually changed and when they've been with Paycor, but there is an approval process that's a double check of what the pay rates are that go to Paycor against the union, and then it's not a one person doing it, and that person's pay is also checked by somebody else. So that there's this double check and monitoring and a control process, which is what we've been looking for. Page 5 to 6, we get into the cash management. They did approve a policy, and it was submitted to the clerk of the bureau, which takes care of that part of things. We'll check. There's nothing really big in there. It's just about the depositories and then interest and stuff. So thank you, Mr. Shepherd.
you. Yeah, sorry for having to leave.
No, I'm sorry. I was like,
Thank
All right.
We haven't moved, there are other ones there, but I have seen where they are reconciling each month and they're getting it much in more manageable unknown areas and identifying reconciling items that they can, like the normals, like we received this, but we didn't post it till this month or whatever the case may be, outstanding checks and so forth. And then they're going to be doing signatures on the bank reconciliations. I have already talked to the treasurer about this. I wanted them to change something on that report, and then that will be coming to the city council as well. Those are the ones, the big ones that have changed. As you can tell, there's several that are still in process. There's still a lot of policies and procedures that have not been finished. The two big ones that we did get through all the way and have been marked off are the investment and then the capital asset. As the safety service director could probably talk more about, when we went through the capital asset policy, it was a lot of back and forth. It was well put together. Then we were like, okay, but you're missing this, or like a lot of times we'll say go and borrow somebody's and start from there, so you're not from scratch. And then we'll be like, you know, we talked about useful lives wasn't matching up what we've seen. They've been using the categories may not have been the same. We actually updated it for a new GASB pronouncement, which was GASB 87, which is the lease contracting thing. They were ahead of the game in that area because we got that approved before that. GASB had to be implemented, which was this past year, so they were in more compliance than some others at the time because that policy had been changed. But it was, I think we went back and forth 4 or 5 times before we even went to council for approval. So just to give you an example of how that process worked. So any questions on any of these that I didn't go over or ones I did?
Number 23. Not sure if you kind of touched on it. Is that saying we need to do a physical or fixed asset inventory? Physical inventory? Is that part of the requirement? Verifying the existence of capital assets?
Yes, and that went to the NORCOM department, and I know that they went through stuff over a year. We have not been able to get together. I went with them around and I said, this needs to be tagged and that needs to be tagged, and we talked about some changes that needed to occur. That's been a while ago, and then we need to get back to looking at what they did for physical inventory and things like that. That was all to occur at the end of last year into the front of this year. It should again occur again, and then they've had updates on their forms and stuff where if things are deleted, trashed, sold, whatever, that information comes into them with tag numbers, and then that's supposed to flow over to the auditor side of the office because they are the ones that are the keeper of that information for the financial statements, and we talked about that as well.
So they did one? They did a fixed asset physical?
I believe that you guys did. You were supposed to. I have not been able to check this off yet until.
Because that's a big deal.
Yes.
It is.
I mean, do we tag every item
Yep.
and all that?
And then what you tag is going to change. What is because it's,
Well, you give it a
So,
number.
like,
You give it
yeah.
a number.
yeah.
You give everything a number and then you
But I'm
track
just
it.
saying, like the status of it. Like you said, at some point you're going to trash it.
Well, yeah, and then you
So you
update.
have
I
to
mean, that's
update,
something
right.
that do we reconcile that to the GL? Like when we did the physical, like you do with inventory?
So that was another piece that needs to be done, is taking the two sides and meshing them together and finding out where the holes are, or what's on the auditor's part downstairs, what's being used as capital assets on the actual financial statements versus what they have logged, which may be above or below that threshold. So they would have probably more items than what they have in the auditor's office. So that is to occur as well. We talked about that. I don't think that's occurred yet, but that's the other piece that's got to come into
Yeah,
this.
because that's a big deal. I mean, when you say, well, we counted 4 million and the books say we have 6. Looks like we need to dig in the detail. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. I know that. I mean, it's difficult and it takes a lot of
Some people have
time. and-
companies, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why
They
the
contract it
majority of
out.
companies or a lot of
Yeah.
companies just don't do it because it's unreasonable and you just don't have some inventory guy to just go take 3 months to figure it out, so. But,
Look
good
at the
luck
back of your
anyway.
chair.
What's that?
Look at the back of that chair.
They got a tag, seriously?
They all have tags.
They
Yeah,
do.
barcode.
Okay.
So this was 26.99.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at our place, they don't even tag monitors. I've got 2 of them at home and 2 at work,
Yeah.
because I work hybrid. It's like, eh. And
Right, I
at one
mean, it's
time,
just-
that used to be like, oh my gosh, you got a big monitor?
Right.
So as the years,
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sure your dollar thresholds are different, you know, I
Right.
mean, you're maybe using $10,000 items where you might use it 1,000 or something like that, so. Because you can't tag everything.
Right.
You know, it's just ridiculous,
Right.
but, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Comment though on this. The report I checked yesterday, the report on accounting methods was issued in 2018. It's September 12th, 2023. I will say that there has been a lot of progress made on this, particularly in more recently. Would you agree? I mean, some of it has been
There's been
kind
a
of like you
step.
do the low hanging
Yes.
fruit, and then you go on from there. I mean, anybody's going to do that. But there has been progress made, but there still needs to be some more progress. We've got to address all of them. Okay. If there are no other questions on that, does anybody else have any old business, new business?
Would I be able to make one comment briefly on this?
I will let you, sure.
Thank you very
I'm
much. I
very-
appreciate that.
This is not very structured. That's just the way I am, so.
I believe there's an error on item number 24
Oh,
regarding the consumable inventory policy. The city does have a consumable inventory
I've not
policy.
seen it. You've not seen it.
Hasn't been tested.
You
Okay.
haven't sent it to me.
We did that at the end of December.
I haven't seen it. So if you'll send that to me, that would be great.
okay.
I can do that.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Good to know.
That was the only thing in the not started column? That would jumped out at you?
No, there's another one.
That one mostly jumped out at me because we spent so much time on it at the end of the year. Norcom went around and did this across the city, so we spent a good deal of time getting that one accomplished.
I have another question on item 33. Yes,
Okay.
just to finish
Which
up real quick. Actually, yeah, 33, last page.
Okay.
Refers to the bank recs, supporting documentation presented to city council at meetings. We'll retest in September or October of 2023. Is that a bank reconciliation with no reconciling items, or is that just the bank reconciliation?
Bank reconciliation, I would look for them to also present one page of each bank statement so that they know that what's being presented is accurate. Plus, we're looking for that signature from the treasurer himself, because he's not performing the reconciliations, then that would prove that he also has monitored and went back through and double checked it to make sure the supporting documentation is there. So I would be looking for some of that as well.
And he signs off on that once he's done that?
Yes, that is one of the other comments is coming. So, and I've seen what they're going to do in that regard, and we had talked about some improvements to that, so.
Thanks.
Anything else on the report on accounting methods? Okay. Any other old business, new business?
I mean, we talked about putting this letter on the agenda under old business or new business.
Oh, we can discuss this now.
Okay, under new business?
Sure.
Okay. So each member of the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission received a letter
Yes.
from me just here recently. And I apologize, it took a little longer than I would have liked to have gotten it out to you guys a little bit earlier, but anyways, you have it. The key points to that, and I think a couple of parts that are interesting also is that as you read maybe the best thing to do is to read this because there are members of the community that watch this. So may I?
Absolutely.
All right, so this letter is dated September 10th, and it's from the mayor to the Financial Planning and Supervision Commission members. As mayor of the city of Norwood, I respectfully request that a motion be made, seconded, and any affirmative vote be taken to remove the city of Norwood from fiscal emergency effective December 31st, 2023. And to put this into context, a little history on the city finances and how it ended up in fiscal emergency. The city was placed in fiscal watch for 12, has been in fiscal watch for 12 years, 2005 to 2016, prior to being placed in a fiscal emergency by the state auditor. At that time, back in 2005, I think the state auditor was Eddie Montgomery. So that's 4 state auditors that have been involved over these years. The city has been in fiscal emergency status since 2016, which has been 7 years. This is a total of 19 years that the Auditor of State's office has been monitoring and controlling and working with the city of Norwood. 19 years. I don't think there's any other municipality in the state of Ohio that has had the Auditor of State in charge or involved that heavily for 19 years. I didn't see any that had 7 years as status in fiscal emergency. The quote from in 2016 by then Auditor of State Dave Yost was that the city of Norwood, they're not in dire states as other cities that have been put into fiscal emergency. They're basically a healthy entity that needs to get squared away on their financials. This was what he said in 2016. The mayor in 2016, who took office in 2004, stated he had no comment, but then stated it should not be that long in reference to the time in fiscal emergency. This is in 2016. It is 2023 now. The city was placed in fiscal emergency based on one criterion out of the 6 that the state auditor's office used to look at financial health of the city. The city failed by having substantial deficit balances in city funds. This has not been a factor and will not be a factor in the future. Over the past 4 years, while I've been mayor, there's been considerable effort to improve the financial health of the city through the utilization of recognized accounting practices for municipalities, as well as embracing the outside guidance and support that has been provided. And I think that sentence alone states that we have embraced the outside guidance and support. We've tried to move the city forward. You can see that from looking at the accounting methods, comments, and what's been going on there. The City of Norwood Auditor, Treasurer, and Administrative Offices have worked to implement policies and procedures that improve the long-term financial stability of the city, which includes planning tools. The City Auditor, Jim Stith, who's been involved long-term as an auditor, worked hard with the Auditor of State's office, but needed help from other departments within the city. And when I say departments, I'm talking the mayor's office and from the treasurer's office. So he struggled along and did a great job through all this time. But now the landscape has changed a little bit. So it has been and is recognized as a continuous improvement process. We are committed to this. So when I say we, I say, what does the future look like for the City of Norwood elected officials, the elected officials that are put in place by the residents of the city? You may ask, what's that matter? Well, my 4-year term as mayor expires December 31st, and I'm running unopposed for 4 more years. I will be the mayor until 2027. The current president of council, Ken Miracle, and a member of the Supervision Committee is the only candidate for the auditor's position, the city auditor's position. He will be the city auditor until 2027. The current treasurer, who took office a year and 8 months ago, will start his second term for his finishing out his first term, but he will be in place for 2 more years. Treasurer Bonzel is a former city council member and chairperson of the city finance committee. Treasurer Bonzel has made great strides after taking over the treasurer's office from a previous 20-year office holder. He's very progressive. There is stability now and future in these rules that guide and shape the daily, monthly, and annual fiscal operations of the municipality. Just the comments and the discussion about the reconciliation and the treasurer's office working with the auditor of state's office to implement and utilize policies and procedures that they use for reconciliation shows his dedication to moving the city forward in fiscal matters. All three of us have committed to continue the processes that have been implemented over the past few years to monitor and control the finances of the city. We are all committed to putting in place and maintaining processes, policies, and procedures that keep the city on a solid financial footing. As you can see from the financial reports, the city has finished out the last few years with solid numbers, putting us in the black. The future is bright, and we will continue to work diligently to continue on a stable and, most importantly, sustainable financial path. Respectfully requested for action, Victor Schneider, Mayor of the City of Norwood. The Auditor of State's office is one of 5 independently elected statewide offices in Ohio with over 600, I'm sorry, did I say 600? No, I said 6,000 state and local government agencies that they oversee. We went into a fiscal watch under Betty Montgomery. We had, from the Auditor of State, we also had Mary Taylor as the auditor. Then we had Ken Yost as auditor the whole time while Norwood's been under this. And now it's Dave Farber, right? Keith Farber, excuse me, Keith Farber. So it's been 4 Auditor of States. And, you know, when this letter, one of the parts I look at it and say, at some point, the Auditor of State has to recognize that the City of Norwood has the tools, the people, and policies and procedures in place to do what is necessary, which is home rule. We are a city, we're a municipality, and the Auditor of State needs to step back. And this is where we're on the right track. You talked about, it's been said and laughed about, we want a total and complete separation, not just a divorce, or we want a divorce, not a separation. Quite frankly, I don't think the City of Norwood wants to be married to the Auditor of State's office at all. And we've been married 4 years. We are married and working under their thumb. And that's fine. And we will continue to use the guidance and follow all the criteria that's in place for us to efficiently and effectively control the finances and move this city forward. But, you know, as this letter is put in place, because I think the city should be out of fiscal emergency. It carries a very negative connotation to the city. When we're trying to hire, when we're trying to bring people in, everything we do, people jump online and they go, oh, you guys are in fiscal emergency. What's going on with the city of Norwood? The city of Norwood is thriving. We're doing better than we have in years. But then we've got this hanging over our head, and it shouldn't be hanging over our head. And I'm not willing to say, oh, well, let's just keep kicking the can down the road every time we talk as a financial commission. Well, how do you get out of this? Well, is it going to be 2 years or 5 years? When do we stop? I say this is the date. The date is December 31st, 2023. And we continue the progress because it is a continuous improvement plan that we put in place. It is 5-year plans, and we'll continue doing those. And we'll continue asking the Auditor of State's office advice and for help, which they provide to 6,000 other municipalities. But we don't need to be under a fiscal emergency at this time in the city of Norwood. That's not necessary. So that's why I'm asking for members of the Planning and Supervision Commission to take a vote and get us out of this.
I would agree with you, Mayor. The city has progressed greatly. I can remember the first time I was the first chair. We've had some other people chair the commission. I'm back here again. I can't begin to tell you the changes that I have seen. You have progressed greatly and you're on a solid path. And I do know that you were the reasons why you were put into fiscal emergency, and also why there's a stepping procedure, if you will, for lack of a better term. An entity can be placed in fiscal caution, monitored for a while. If it meets certain conditions, it gets moved up to fiscal watch. If it monitored again, if it progresses downward, it gets moved up to fiscal emergency. I understand that it was negative cash balances that put you into put the city into fiscal emergency. However, to get out of fiscal emergency, to get into fiscal emergency is governed by Ohio Revised Code. To get out of fiscal emergency is also governed by Ohio Revised Code. Section 118.27 addresses the continued existence of the commission. Division A of that section just basically addresses, it says that a financial planning and supervision commission with respect to a municipal corporation, county, or township, and its functions under this chapter shall continue in existence until such time as a determination is made pursuant to Division B of this section of one of the following. So Division B is just basically goes to tell you the determination that the conditions for the termination of the existence of the commission and its functions exist may be made either by the auditor of state or by the commission. So either the auditor, Mr. Faber, can come in and determine everything is fine. You have the conditions for which removal from fiscal emergency have been reached, and you will be terminated, or the commission. So what you are asking for is that the commission vote. Okay, I would refer you to, and I'm sorry, I tried to print this, I was at home and it just wasn't working. You can definitely have your legal folks look at this and review it. But 118A3 goes on, and the other subdivisions A, B, C, and D. So I would refer you to A, which is planned and is in the process of good faith implementation of an effective financial accounting and reporting system in accordance with section 118.10 of the revised code, and it is reasonably expected that such implementation will be completed within 2 years. So 118.10 addresses the report on accounting methods. As we have discussed, the report on accounting methods was issued in 2018. It is now 2023. There are still a number of comments that need to be addressed, and not only addressed, they need to be tested.
Where does it say testing? What I read is corrected and eliminated, or has planned and is in the process of good faith implementation of correcting and eliminating all of the fiscal emergency conditions. I don't see anywhere where it says that what I read this, and I appreciate you sending this to me because I did print it out. What I read was, we are meeting, I read it and said, wow, we're absolutely meeting that criteria. We are correct and eliminating, and we're working in good faith implementation of correcting and eliminating.
That's
The plan-
B, I was reading A.
Okay, and
But
you have that outlined too.
You have to address all of those sections.
But A does not say anywhere where it says it needs to be testing. It says plan
Okay.
and is in the process of good faith implementation of or an effectual financial accounting and reporting system. And it is reasonably expected that such implementation will be completed within 2 years. I think it's a reasonable expectation that these things will be completed in 2 years.
Not when this was issued in 2018, and this is now 2023. I would beg to differ with you.
I wasn't here in 2018. And
Okay.
and neither was, quite frankly, neither was the future auditor, neither was the treasurer. We weren't on this commission. When I took the position as mayor just a few years ago, we started working on these things, and we started working diligently to move forward with that. So I think you can look at it and say, well, the previous mayor let it linger for all these years, so you should be, well, I'm sorry, but I'm a different person. And it's a different administration, and it's a different safety service director, and quite frankly, the whole landscape has changed. The 4 elected officials of this city now work together and speak, and we are moving the city forward in a positive direction. That couldn't be said in 2018. It can absolutely be said now, and it's something that we have all worked for. And, Jim Stith has worked towards building that relationship, and the new auditor that comes in, Ken Miracle, who's a member of this commission, is working towards that. So I think it's reasonable to expect a first, a second, and a vote by the commission to remove us from fiscal emergency effective December 31st, 2023. And I think, I didn't say, let's make it at the beginning or the end of this month or the beginning of this month. I said December 31st. And I think we have to have that reconciliation part put together. And if we're utilizing the tools that the Auditor of State's office, which it sounds like we're doing, is we're utilizing those tools properly, we're moving in the right direction. And I am not shutting the door on the Auditor of State's office or the help. I'm asking for the Auditor of State's office to continue providing guidance, much like they had years ago. And I think I can speak for all of the elected officials that we are committed to continuing the process that's being made. We just don't want to be under a fiscal emergency. That's just not where we should be.
And I would agree, and once the comments on the report on accounting methods are addressed, and you have a bank reconciliation, I would be more than happy to bring forward a resolution that would request the Auditor of State to do their analysis. You do not get removed from fiscal emergency on a vote. You don't. And
What did you
Mayor,
send me then?
Mayor, rather than argue a point, I would ask this commission to vote to ask the Attorney General's office to come in and review the criteria and to explain at our next meeting what she has found.
And I would respectfully, totally disagree with that. I think I put a letter in front, and I will make the motion, because I do think what you sent me states that the commission,
It does not, Your Honor.
either the auditor of the state or by the commission. And the auditor of state has put other people out of this, and basically the statement that the standard boilerplate statement that he puts out or has been put out by the Auditor of State's office is adopted and implemented an effective financial accounting and reporting system, which we have, corrected and eliminated all the fiscal emergency conditions we have, based on a 5-year forecast, we have that, met the major objectives and financial recovery plan, which we continue to work towards, and we have, prepare a 5-year forecast in accordance with standards issued by the Auditor of State, which we have. Those are, so I look at it and say we've met the requirements, and we should take a vote.
I cannot in good conscience vote on that.
Well, you would either vote yes or you would vote no. You would, what do you mean? On good
I,
conscience?
as chair of this commission, I will not bring this up for a vote.
Okay, I think I understand where we went.
I can give you my thoughts if anybody wants to hear them, just from my CPA perspective.
Sure.
I agree with you, the majority of what you have to say, but I would not vote yes to your request if it were to happen. I still see, to me, the most important thing about this has always been the management letter, the accounting methods document. That goes back to the actual spirit and core of the entity. And having been in this committee before you, and it's been, your contributions have been incredible, so thank you. I sat here across from the mayor and argued with him regularly about just the world, some world he lived in that just wasn't reality. And it was so bad and so deep for so long that it's going to take a decade to kind of get all that, drain the swamp, so to speak, and get all those deeply layered errors and just, just incorrect methods that have gone on so long that it's going to take a while, even longer than this, to climb out of this hole. And I understand the fiscal emergency scarlet letter, maybe there's another, maybe we can go to watch at this point, the appeal to go to watch, and that's whatever the next level down is. But I don't think we've, when we sit here, we counted the fixed assets, but we didn't reconcile them. And the bank account continues to not be reconciled, and not reconciled within 15 days, timely. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But there's some big ones in here. We've made some serious progress, and some of them, disaster recovery plans, things like that. A lot of companies don't have those, but I think there's still some core stuff left in here. And as far as it, you can't say internal control is working until it is tested and then monitored. That's just part of it. The testing is the first part. Does it work or does it not? And then you fix it, and then you retest it. Is it working? And then you make sure that they're continuing to do that once down the road and basically watching over them and making sure it's done timely. So you cannot kind of get it with just testing it and saying, yeah, it worked, or things like that. You need to make sure it's working on an ongoing basis. And these things have been broken for 15 years or whatever we were on watch for, and they were not addressed. Then when all this comes down in 2018, and I'm not sure when I came on the committee, but 2016 maybe, doesn't matter. So we made a tremendous amount of progress, but we're just not there because we were so deep in the pit that it was so hard to crawl out of and would take so much time because it was so pervasive. And we've drained the swamp, we've got all new people and everything's headed in the right direction. But from an accounting perspective, big things need to be reconciled, fixed assets, cash. Those are the things. And I worry a little bit about once we're out of that, who is the overseer? Who is the Anna Mary that is kind of the bad cop, so to speak, that's kind of checking everybody? Because if we're all together and we all think, oh, we're doing great and everything's moving along, well, you're all drinking kind of the same Kool-Aid, and it may be the right Kool-Aid, but you need someone on the outside to verify that and to kind of bless that for the long term, because once they're gone, hopefully forever. I just don't think we're there yet. And we made great progress, but in good conscience, I don't think I could vote positively to it because I don't think we've met the criteria. And you can argue about what the criteria is or this or that or working on or progress, but there's some things in here that bother me personally that I think we need to still fix with her guidance.
It's not just guidance. I mean, she's in charge. It's not the elected officials, it's not your council members, it's not the mayor. She's in charge.
I am not in charge.
When it comes to making decisions about what we can and cannot do, there's a financial supervisor that
There's
the
supposed to
auditor.
be.
But listen to this. Here's an important part. You asked the question of who monitors that stuff. The Auditor of State's office monitors 6,000 municipalities. And correct me if I'm wrong, you tell me. You guys do it and come in, the auditors come in every year and look at what's going on in the city of Norwood.
There's a division of audit under the state auditor's office that does perform audits.
Okay.
However, our office does contract out to independent public accountants, auditors. So they are not all done through our office, but contracts have to be done through our office. You actually are audited through an IPA for your audit and have been for several years, to be honest. So
Annually?
you are because you meet the threshold annually, but that is not right at the end of the year. It has to be done after the financial report is submitted into the Hinkle filing system of our office.
But Brad, the real answer to your question is, there are checks and balances. There are people that are looking over the shoulder of the city auditor's office and other financial, there's a lot of oversight. And if
I'm
you
not
go,
saying there's not.
if you go to the auditor of state's office, you can look at their press, they go after people, they go after treasurers and auditors who screw up, who do things wrong. There's a lot of oversight. Now, when you ask that to me as the mayor, I look at it and say, it's my job to make sure that the people that work for the city of Norwood and work providing the services, to make sure they're doing their job right. And the safety service director is the one who's implementing these policies and procedures. You think he's going to put all the time and effort into these policies and procedures and then not go back and say, this is the right way to do it? Are you doing it the right way? I mean, that's what you do when you run the organization. Has it been done that way in the past? Maybe not as effectively as it should have, but it should be. And that's my big part. I will ask, and I understand your part of it. I recognize if you wouldn't want to jump in on that, but I will ask that my letter be attached, included with the minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will, since you've made it clear who's in charge here, I would like for you to look into the resolution that would go to the state auditors to say, start looking at this and whether he will let us out or not.
Sure, I can look into it. May I put up for vote? I would like to put up for vote. I would move that we contact the auditors, not the auditors, the Attorney General's office to render an opinion and clarify for us from a legal perspective what is needed to get out of fiscal emergency. So I would make that move to contact the Attorney General's office. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I'm going to ask for a vote on it. Mayor Schneider.
Or can we have discussion?
We can discuss, sure.
I'm not certain what that would, so we're going to ask them to provide us with specific guidelines that will clarify whether testing is required or not?
No, I'm looking for a legal opinion so that she can tell us legally, per revised code, what is needed to get out of fiscal emergency.
Like, what do we need to do to push it across the finish line? Specifically. And I think
But I
that
think
would
we-
answer a lot of the
I
questions
think
we're
what you
speculating on is this good enough? Is this not good enough? I mean, we need a third party to,
My concern is what you provided to me and what I printed out states clearly the determination that the conditions for the termination of the existence of the commission and its functions may be made either by the auditor of state or by the commission and shall be certified to the commission, the auditor of state and the governor budget commission. So I guess you're asking her to tell whether the commission can just take a vote and do it, as I'm asking, or whether it has to be released from fiscal emergency. The auditor of state has to do that. Those are the two questions you're going to put to her?
I probably didn't word that correctly. Let me see. My concern is this. I am an attorney, but I am not an attorney for the commission. The attorney for the commission is the Attorney General's office, and specifically it's Elizabeth Fligner. Elizabeth was not able to come today. What I would like is for us to have Elizabeth at our next meeting so that she can give her interpretation as attorney of the commission, the criteria to get out of fiscal emergency.
I would like to have her determination in writing well before the next meeting. Because when's our next meeting? We don't have that set, but our meetings have been 3 to 6 months in between. I don't really agree with that timeline for waiting for
Okay.
a determination from her. So I'd like to have something from her in writing prior to our next meeting.
As attorney for the commission, and with the commission being a public body, I am not certain if that can be done.
Okay, and I'd like to request that our next meeting be next month.
I can't guarantee that she will be able. What I can say to you is that we can have a meeting that is sooner than 6 months. The reason the meetings have been spread out so long is all we are doing is waiting for bank reconciliation and the comments on the report on accounting method to be addressed so that I can then bring a resolution to the commission to request the auditor of state to do the analysis that would then release the city from fiscal emergency. I will tell you that it is not done on a vote. A resolution is passed and there is analysis that needs to be conducted. You didn't get into fiscal emergency on a vote, and you're not going to get out on a vote either.
We didn't get into fiscal emergency on a vote, and we are not going to get out of fiscal emergency on a vote neither. All right, so with that being said, you're saying you want to have the Attorney General's office represented at the next meeting to explain to us the process for
Yes.
getting out.
And actually as attorney for the commission to address any legal questions you may have regarding termination and so on. And the revised code, particularly chapter 118 that addresses fiscal emergency, as well as caution and law.
And so then after she comes back and says, there has to be an analysis done by the Auditor of State's office, which the Auditor of State's office is doing all this work anyways. I don't know where you would do an analysis other than, but so when she comes back, then it's 6 months to get that analysis done?
I don't know that it's 6 months. I don't know. It depends on the Auditor of State's office. Actually, the Auditor of State's office, as well as through the following the revised code, also has its internal policies and procedures, because the engagement letter that the city signs every year, that also stipulates what services and what you can expect from the Auditor of State's office. As a professional organization, as a profession, in the profession of accounting, they have their own ethics, personal responsibility, codes, and so forth that they will follow.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just the mayor. I couldn't tell you about the accounting ethics that they have,
Well, I'm
but
a CPA, so I'm required to take professional education in ethics and deal with things like this. So I think I have a good basis for that. But I mean, just looking at these controls going back, I mean, this is what an auditor will look like, and this is, you know, you and I think it's the same. Page 2, test in 21, went to test in October 22, no documentation kept when X. We'll test again in September. Tested in 23, continued to test. Let's see, the fixed asset inventory was one, but there's some of these where they say we tested, we had problems, and they need to test again. I mean, they may or may not be significant, but they're on here, and either you pass the test or you don't pass the
There's
test.
no criteria whatsoever in the Ohio Revised Code that says they need to test and pass this at some point to get out of fiscal emergency. We were placed in fiscal emergency for certain reasons.
But-
Really, and those reasons have been eradicated, eliminated.
The funds.
And the path forward has been put in place to take care of it. There's a difference between why we were put in fiscal emergency and what you guys are trying to say this is going to keep you in there for. There's nothing in here that says we have to pass some sort of testing. It does say in here that we need to be in the process of good faith implementation, and we clearly are. That's in here. I totally agree. There's nothing here that says we have to pass these tests to be taken out. So that's a moot point. It really doesn't matter.
Sharon, isn't there a clause in there that states even if we took them out, if they do not have the report on accounting methods, all in process within 2 years, they can revert back to fiscal emergency. So therefore, that would be the clause that states thou shalt have all fixed, correct?
Well, the thing is too, is the way they're looking at it.
Starts from the day we're out.
The way we're looking at it though, is we got this thing in 2018 and we didn't do a damn thing for 4 years, basically until you and Ken kind of started pushing this forward. So the state looks at it and said, they were on watch for 15 years. We did this counting method. They sat on it. They didn't do much. I sat here with the mayor and talked about this stuff. Why the hell should we do them any favors? They're not taking it seriously. Maybe we are now, but they see the last 20 years of us not taking it seriously. So I don't begrudge them.
I'm not
I
asking-
don't begrudge them for not.
I'm not asking for any
giving it to us
favors.
Because they're like, well, you took 20 years and in the 2-year thing, you didn't get that done. And so why should I do you any favors?
I'm not asking for any favors.
Well, that would be
We
a
are
favor
doing,
because we didn't
there's
meet
so
all the
much hard work,
qualifications.
there's so much hard work that has been done. There's so much hard work that the auditor and treasurer's office and the administration have completed. We're not asking for favors. And we're not asking for any leniency. We're not asking for anything more than to get out of fiscal emergency, to get that burden off our back so that we can just move forward, continue the process, continue the progress, improve, and be better. And that's what we're asking for. We're not asking for anybody to provide us a favor. We're not asking for the Auditor of State's office to leave. We're asking for their continued guidance in the future without this hanging over our back,
Yeah.
without the fiscal
Well, then
emergency
there's
part.
the next level down is something we can request.
I don't want any of it. Why do we need any of it? If
Because we haven't meted the criteria across the board. We haven't. I mean, either you did or you didn't, and we didn't.
Yes, Chris.
Not yet.
I've been involved with these things off and on for 25 years. Okay. Small entities, larger entities, they work in
County.
the county.
Yep.
Okay, I was the financial supervisor. I was Anna Mary's counterpart at the only county that's ever been in fiscal emergency.
Sayota.
They had their finances back up to par. They had all their fund deficits taken care of. They were back into good financial position. They were not allowed to come out of fiscal emergency until they addressed pretty much all of the report on accounting method items that we had identified.
pretty much,
Yeah, I think there was 1 or 2 that they hadn't completed yet. It was in the process. So we let them out of fiscal emergency on the condition within the 2 years that they had those 2 items taken care of, addressed, and fixed. So we had to monitor them for whatever period of time it was to make sure that those 2 remaining items were addressed, fixed, tested, and they were. Once that happened, then we completely left them from the fiscal emergency run. So that report on accounting methods and the 5-year forecast they both come into play as part of being released from fiscal emergency, along with us coming in and retesting all 6 conditions to make sure that you not only corrected the condition that put you in, which is the deficit fund balances, but we have to make sure none of the other 5 conditions that did not put you in are now actually coming into play. So you may come out and address your deficit balances, but what happens if you're not making payroll back? And I'm not saying you're not, because I believe you are. I believe the city's is fine as far as that perspective. But if you weren't, now you meet the fiscal emergency criteria under a different criteria than what originally put you in. So we come in, we test all 6 conditions to make sure everything is clear, to make sure none of those 6 conditions either exist now or you have cleared the issue and corrected the issue that put you in. We look at your financial forecast, your 5-year forecast, to make sure you're, again, projecting out well, to make sure your fund balance is projected to be positive in the funds that put you in fiscal emergency. And we make sure that you have addressed all of the report on accounting method comments that came with you being designated fiscal emergency. So one of my suggestions would be, and you can call us in and double check this and ask questions, whatever. I would start with your report on accounting methods, start looking at the ones that are either in process, ones that you say are completed but not tested, and so we fix whatever the problem is, or if there's one that hasn't been addressed at all, figure out what needs to be done to be addressed. If you can get those things cleared and continue to keep on a positive financial path like you have been, then there shouldn't be any issues coming out, requesting coming out of this emergency.
I would vote against a motion to request information from the Attorney General's office, and I would vote for a request to do the analysis for the Auditor of State's office to do the analysis on whether we can get out of it, because that sounds like that's really, if we're talking root cause or the effect that we need that analysis done.
I'm going to disagree, Your Honor. I'm not going to bring anything up to a vote. The only thing I can say to you is that we will set a meeting date and time, and I will have the Attorney General's office representative here to field any concerns and questions you may have about the law.
But you had a first and
The
second.
report on accounting methods is not done on a whim. It is done because those things that are on the report on accounting methods, in some way, shape, or form, is the foundation, the backbone as to why an entity goes into fiscal emergency. And if you have not addressed those, you have not put your city on a firm foundation. I don't care how much money you have in the funds. I am glad that they are positive. But until you address the core reasons and the core deficits and operations that you have, which are evidenced by the comments on the report on accounting methods, I cannot, in good conscience, see you get out of fiscal emergency. And as a profession, we would be asking the profession of accountancy, as evidenced by the Auditor of State, to disregard those core underlying reasons why you are in fiscal emergency. And I don't think that is fair to ask that profession. Given that we have an impasse, I would say let's determine our next meeting date and time.
With the intent to invite that person from the,
She's always able to come, yeah. Well,
Okay. Yeah, if we-
I shouldn't say she's always able to come. When I set the meeting date and time, if she is available, she will ask if she needs to be here or not. I would say in this case, she needs to be here.
Yeah, and I would
Would
suggest
be
if we
fine.
need to coordinate our timing around her schedule, I would be, I mean.
Yeah, I know,
Either the day or the week or whatever, I mean, I agree we need a meeting sooner rather than
I
later.
think the Tuesday seems to be okay for her. As far as the date, I would, Anna Mary, you guys always have trainings and stuff like that, and you have deadlines for other entities that are different. Like I think schools have different reports that are due.
Hold on, Chris, when's our village trainings in October? I don't have those.
One is October 19th, which is Thursday. The other is November 1st, which is Wednesday.
But you have to prep for those.
Yeah, we're presenting to villages in those areas, so those are back live starting this year. So
Okay.
we have the two that we have to do for our region. So
Okay.
November is a very bad month for us because that's the deadline month for schools.
Okay.
What are you thinking, October, or are you thinking December? Or whatever. Victor, you think next month? That'd be your.
The sooner the better, but
Sooner the better.
I'm clearly at whatever,
And I understand
The
totally
Auditor
where you're
State's
coming from.
office-
This is not this is just a professional disagreement between you and me. I hear everything you're saying. I just, again, as a CPA and a person, I just don't think we met the standard yet. We made incredible strides. I'm surprised by how much progress we made, but there's still some meat on this bone that any auditor would tell you, yeah, that won't fly. That's too much.
Are you just looking to do a meeting, like, what are we gonna go over, I guess, so that I know what we're preparing? Like,
Yeah,
if we're
that's-
doing financials, I'm gonna need some time.
I don't know. Do you want a meeting with financials? Because I think the question at hand isn't the financials.
We can update where the report on accounting methods are. I'm coming back in the city in 2 weeks, or 2.5 weeks.
That's why I think October is too early. I would look for
I'm-
December.
I'm not sure when we talk about this meeting and you say, what is it about? If it's about bringing the Attorney General's office and figuring out what the process, what the defined legal process is for getting out of fiscal emergency, I think you've already very much clarified. It's not by a vote of this commission, it's by the Auditor of State's office doing an analysis of where we stand and then making a determination.
Well,
So having a meeting just for her to come in and tell me what you've made clear I don't know that anybody in the commission that wasn't made clear to. So if that's what the meeting is for, then having a meeting in December or January or February or March of next year is not really going to make a difference. You've already told me that the only way to do this is for the analysis, which would be a vote from the commission to do.
The commission would pass a resolution asking the Auditor of State to conduct their analysis.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what'd you say it was?
Its determination, the resolution basically requests our office to come in and perform the analysis, determine the fiscal emergency designation for the city.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, what has been done in the past is the commission works with the financial supervisor so that we get a good feeling that we can request release from fiscal emergency. We can request the termination analysis to be conducted with a good feeling that the analysis will then result in termination. But if you want us to pass a resolution for them to do their analysis, I can't at this point, and neither really can Anna Mary, say that you're going to be released after this termination analysis is completed. I mean, we can ask
But
them
this-
to do an
this-
analysis.
this
That
all
doesn't
goes
mean
to-
you're gonna go get out.
This all goes back to the report on accounting methods and the testing that, and this is my concern is, and I don't think the testing has anything to do with us being in or out of fiscal emergency because of the people that you are working with, the elected officials that are here have already committed to continuing this process and to moving forward. My concern is that this testing, it says in process, but it's all based upon whether Anna Marie and others can get here. And, well, somebody's on vacation, so it took another 3 months. Well, then it took another 3 months, and then we came back and we're going to test. When does that stop?
Okay, so let me address your concerns, because I've been quiet for most of this. So, as you guys have talked, and then my chief has been here and has presented that. What I would like for you to do, and anybody here, would be going out to our website and pulling down a fiscal emergency termination report. In there, you will see all that we have to do to take you out, which we have gone over in the past. We will test all 6 conditions. We will state all 6 conditions in the very front of that report. We will state whether you have passed or if you've not passed, which then we wouldn't release that report because you would not meet termination conditions. Also in there is this section on report on accounting methods. You'll see every comment that they had in the report on accounting methods, and then it will state whether it is completed, in process, or not started, or something in those regards. And there will be a paragraph or a sentence that will describe what is going on with that comment. For anything that does not state completed or whatever, has to be monitored. So you cannot ask for that and have a bunch of things that would have to be monitored. And if you looked at things today, that's quite a bit that would have to be monitored going forward. And we would not look to take you out of emergency based on that. The other part of that report is also to look at your report and management letter that has been the most recent release, because we're going to look at the comments there to see if anything new has occurred and are you addressing those as well. Then in the back is the 5-year forecast, which would have to be updated to the time of the release of the termination, which would have assumptions much more detailed than they are now. The capital plan would not be in there, but it would be within the numbers of the 5-year forecast of the 3 funds that we present here at each commission meeting. That is what the termination report looks like. In regards to coming out, if that report on accounting methods is not showing complete, we would have to either say no or monitor. To determine if you've fixed anything, we'll say like the then and nows, and then that you're getting controls and stuff done on the cash side of things. The only way for me to determine that you have completed that or in process is actually to test to make sure that that is occurring. So in those regards, that's what we did to put the comments in, and that's what it's going to take the comments out. That is a part of what we're required in our profession and what we have done for all of our fiscal emergency releases under Chapter 118, because schools is a different chapter under the Ohio Revised Code. So you would have to look at a city, village, county, township fiscal emergency release report. You would not be able to look at a school because that's under a totally different chapter under her Revised Code.
Can you give me you had started out by saying go to the Auditor of State's website.
Yes, you can go to our website, go to audit
Audit
search. You can search by report type, and I believe that that's fiscal emergency termination is what it's called.
Say it again. I'm sorry,
Fiscal emergency termination,
Fiscal emergency determination.
termination, no determination. Like Terminator, like done.
Okay.
And it will pull up any reports in, I think, the last 10 years. I think is how far, maybe further, at least 10 years.
Excellent.
Now, that, again, may pull schools, so you would have to take schools out of that mix. So it
Different
would
code.
have to be others.
For chapter.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful. That was all under the discussion of the next meeting.
Told you I'm very loose on my meetings. Given what you said, Mayor,
We always have to do something in December. It seems like there's always some financial requests that come across in December. So can we do a meeting in December?
yeah.
We have a council meeting on the 12th. If we could do something on the 12th, that would be,
I was actually gonna suggest the 12th.
we
How does
agree.
it work? How does it work for you as
It's
far as?
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Be all right, week 2,
okay, all right.
yeah, we'll make it work.
Greg should be well rested by then. so.
If he decides to.
Okay, okay, all right, sounds good. Well, we will then, next meet, can we make it 9:30? Just to give me that little bit of an edge for 71 accidents, maybe?
As long as you leave them the same time,
I will, definitely. Jeez.
I'll hold you to that.
Okay, should I call you and tell you I'm leaving?
No.
Okay. All right, 9:30 on 12/12.
I have the fully signed copies of the financial recovery plan. I'll send them out to you. I'll send a full copy and then I'll separate it out so that you can see
Do
it.
you need the original copy, Anna Mary? Okay.
Usually we like the original top, but I know that that's part of the resolution that you guys did in the council, correct?
Yes,
Well,
it's got
not-
original.
the
it looks like
original
original
was-
signatures.
The original has all the council signatures. I mean, this one's, I can make a copy that's, and just
Well,
attach
okay,
this to the
so-
ordinance. That's no big deal.
Really, you should have originals and original signatures, and that's the piece that we usually require for, but that's up to you, Chris. Usually we get that part.
Yeah, you need to have the actual, yeah.
Yeah, let me make a copy of it. You can have this. And we'll attach it.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
We usually try to get the original.
what about I guess, no, I forget. I was thinking if anybody signed their own and sent it individually, you wouldn't have to have everything, like, but that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
you bet.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
On a voice vote, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.